There's a lot of credibility up here tonight. A lot of music industry, like Led Zeppelin. I mean, The Clash. And I was born and raised in Los Angeles. A Vinyl Fetish was, iconic. And I was one of those kids getting glared at by Joseph and scared to death by him. And, oh Lord, Peter Yarrow's mother. I mean, there's some credibility up here. I've got cred. I've got plenty of cred. Because for me, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, right? Music for me started, a handful of Los Angeles. We're all here. I come from where all of you guys moved to be, right? Like, welcome to my home. And the thing is, I came of age at the perfect time. Music for me started with punk rock. Hardcore West Coast punk fucking rock. You know, at 13 years old, I was going to shows at places like Godzilla's and Devonshire Downs and Madame Wong's, and I was literally getting dragged unconscious out of slam pits with blood pouring from my head. Oh, yeah. I mean, rumors of my death were going around. Like, I have cred. I've got crazy cred. I also have a secret that just burns my punk roots to the core. Oh God. This story was such a good idea before I got here tonight. I was a John Mellencamp fan. But I wasn't just a fan. That might have been excusable. I was one of a pair of the most obnoxious, obsessed, fanatical melonheads to have ever walked the earth. The other one being my absolute best and dearest friend in life, this guy Rusty, right? And like, just to like try to give you some context for our obsession, just think like Trekkies at Comic-Con, but instead of speaking Klingon to each other, we were just talking all things John all of the time, right? And it made no sense because, like I said, we're from Los Angeles, right? And we're just losing our minds over records about farming. Blood on the scarecrow, blood on the scarecrow. It's like a Stephen King book. No, I mean, it was nuts, and we just lived and breathed John, right? And yes, and we spoke about him like we were on a first name basis with him, you know, and it would be like John this and John that. But the crazy thing was, no matter what I could say about John, Rusty was always one-upping me with like crazy information. Things like, oh, well, you know, it was Tony DeFries, David Bowie's old manager during the Ziggy Stardust period, that changed his name to Johnny Cougar without telling him. True story, right? And I'd be like, wow, man, how did you know that? And it was just crazy stuff all the time out of Rusty. And then one time where my head just exploded, he goes, oh yeah, well, you know, John's grandfather, Spec Mellencamp, that was like John's most important person in life. And I'm like, his grandfather, how do you know his grandfather? And Russ just looked at me like I was an idiot. And he goes, the biography, man. Haven't you read the biography? And I was like, no. And I hadn't for a very good reason. It had never occurred to me that someone would take the time and write a biography about John Mellencamp. It was not Neil Gaiman, because I wish it had been Neil Gaiman, but 20 minutes later, I was at like the Fashion Square in Sherman Oaks in Walden Books buying American Fool. The authorized biography of John Cougar Mellencamp. Oh, and as far as Spec Mellencamp went, yes, on the Scarecrow tour, John was flying home every night to be with Spec when Spec was getting sick. To an emotionally stunted teenager, it was deep. So this is it. We were just John to John all of the time. And we had one goal in life. We are going to sing and perform on stage with John Mellencamp. And we were serious. But also, I know it kind of sounds insane, and as insane as it wasn't like, we weren't like gonna go audition for his band or something like that. It wasn't crazy like that. We had actually seen it happen, right? We saw this happen. It was rooted in a form of reality, you could say, in that when we were 16 years old, we were at the Forum for the Scarecrow tour, and it was during the song Hand to Hold On To, just as John was singing about driving his four-wheel drive into mud, that he like reached down into the audience and pulled a guy up on stage with him. And we're like looking at it going, oh my God, because it was like we were used to guys getting on stage and diving off, or a guy getting on stage and getting tackled by, security. But John actually handed the microphone to the guy, and the guy took it, and they sang together on stage. And it was amazing. Our heads are just blowing off. And I screamed at Russ in the middle of the concert. I was like, next time, that's us. And I meant it. I absolutely meant it. Because look, the thing, it was just, well, I really can't explain it other than just, we love John and we had to do this. And we had a plan. We had a plan because we knew, and we plotted, and we said, okay, so the next time John goes on tour, what we need to make sure that we do is, we were thinking about it, and we would go to other shows and be like, see, we got to be within the first 3 rows, and we got to be close to center because John's got to see us. John's got to know. John, right? And I'm not proud of this. But what we really needed was for John to go on tour. And he finally did. In August of 1987, he released The Lonesome Jubilee, his midlife crisis Appalachian rock record, which Rusty was listening to it one day, and he goes to me, man, this record, it's all about like getting divorced and having work trouble and worrying about retirement. And we love it, man. We identify, like John's gonna love us. This was how we spoke to each other. It was, Also, just so you know, the level of embarrassment with this, his name's not actually Rusty. He's still one of my best friends today, and he texts me, I will disown you if you use my name. Oh, God. And he's not in the room tonight. So, but we have our plan and we do it, and we have to wait 7 months for John to get to Los Angeles, and we were young, we were teenagers. 7 months, that was like 11 years, and it's plotting, and it's going along, and it's going, and then finally the tickets go on sale in January. And of course, we go and driving around, we're like, well, we don't want to be a Ticketmaster, they'll be too busy up at Tower Records, so we got to go. We picked a Music Plus on Van Nuys Boulevard. We sat out all night, And I'll tell you, January and all night gets really cold when all you have is like a leather jacket and a pack of Marlboros. You know, like we were so dumb. And it completely failed. We couldn't get good tickets. Actually, Russ had to drag me out of there as I was screaming at the poor kid working the machine, like, you know, the Ticketmaster computer. I'm like, load seats, load. We waited all night. Oh, and also the other thing, no one else showed up to wait in line. Tickets went on sale at 10. People showed up at 9:30. God. So 2 or 4 or 6 dozen phone calls to like ticket scalpers later, I hear one say, Section B, center section, second row, seats 1 and 2. I told him, I'll be right down. He goes, do you want to know how much they are? They're priceless. And I called Russ and I said, it's happening. It's happening. And then cut to March 2nd, 1988, Los Angeles Sports Arena, parking lot, Russ's Jetta. We're sitting there, and it is deep, and it's a heavy moment between us, because this was our moment of truth, as we kind of felt and saw, and we're sitting there, and we had to go over the plan again. As soon as John hits the stage, we got to sing louder and harder than everybody. We got to let him know how much, yeah, and we're going on, and then we go, and remember, whoever he picks to pull on stage with him takes the other guy with him. And we shook on it. I said, I swear. And Russ goes, I swear on John. I swear on John. That was our form of a blood oath. Half an hour later, we're standing there, we're up against the stage, we're waiting. Oh, and even beforehand, it was amazing. Like, we were talking to the guitar tech, and all of John's guitars were there, including that iconic Gibson Hummingbird, right? The acoustic guitar with the eagle on it. You know, it's got the eagle drawn on it, and the guitar tech held it up really close to us. And we'd seen this 1,000 times in different videos. And then we're looking at it, we're like, what, somebody drew the eagle on with like a ballpoint pen? Which is exactly what happened. Like, some like road crew dude got really drunk one night with John and just grabbed like a Bic pen and drew this eagle on, you know? So it was not nearly, it looked terrible up close, quite honestly. But it was amazing. And we're there. And then all of a sudden, finally, the lights dim and the music starts and the band starts playing and it's Paper and Fire and we're starting to scream and John walks out and as he's walking he goes, hey man, yeah, and he points at it. We're like, oh my God, John just pointed at us. And we were singing every lyric and we were going nuts and it was just hit after hit because he goes from Paper and Fire right into Jack and Diane and we're like sucking on chili dogs at the Tasty Freeze, right? Like, I mean, we are in ecstasy. We're loving it. And John actually, like, at one point, I'm like letting out these wolf howls. Like, I'm like, Harr! I can't do it anymore. I think I destroyed my voice that night. But at one point, and it was oh God, what song was it in the middle of? I think it was in the middle of Lonely Old Night that he goes like, mimics me, and I howled, and he went, Arr! Like that. I was like, John mimicked me. Like, oh my God, it was amazing. And we're pointing and just like, and during Scarecrow, like we started yelling at Kenny, because Kenny Aaron, that was our first bonding moment actually, when Russ and I were talking about Kenny's snare drum sound on the Scarecrow record, and we locked eyes and we were like, the snare drum sound. And I swear to God, we had the most intimate moment two dudes can have over Americana rock, talking about Kenny Aronoff's snare drum sound. Like, this was the level of devotion and love that we had and that we bonded over, right? And now we're helping him, we're yelling at Kenny, and Kenny like pointed a stick at us, and he was like, yeah, and he threw a stick our way, and we're like, Kenny, and it's just going on, and we're covered in sweat, and we're singing every lyric, and the show's going, and it's 90 minutes in, and the whole band knows who we are, and we're just loving every second of it. And then it happens. Hand to hold on to. And I grab Russ, and I'm like, it's time, it's happening. And we're just beside ourselves, right? Because this is it. We've been building for years to this moment. And they start playing, and they start going, and we're just singing. Everyone needs a hand to hold. And we're doing it. And then right when he's back to that line about driving four-wheel drives into the mud, and they hit the bridge and slide right into Chain Gang. Like this is what it's like working on the Chain Gang, right? And they start doing this like 60s medley of like Chain Gang and Under the Boardwalk and crap. Like we're like, what the John, what the, and then it hits us. We're like, he's not doing it. He's not pulling anybody up on stage with him anymore. And then it just starts to hit us. It's like, oh dear God, what if that was like a one-time thing that he pulled that guy up? Like maybe he knew the guy. It's LA. It could be a guy that he's been recording. Well, like what were we thinking? And we're shattered, right? Because this dream, this thing, this like total idea, like of just being able to like, as one of us had put it, I won't say who, but when we realized like it would be Russ and me and John together on stage together, one of us said, it's like the harmonic convergence of all of our greatest dreams, right? No. There was no harmonic convergence. There was no dream. It wasn't happening. And we were dying. And then they finally finished that stinking like groove medley of whatever. And they started playing Small Town. And it was that first, and it look, and if that song, it's infectious, and it just starts penetrating, and it starts coming back, and Russ and I start getting back into it, and we're screaming about marrying an LA doll and taking her. Well, I live in LA, so I would stay here. But, it was just, I don't think I'd ever been to a small town by that point in my life, quite honestly. But it was great. And we were like, fuck it, man. It was like, I was there with my best friend, and we were seeing our greatest icon, and it was an amazing show, and we were right up front. And we kind of forgot about the whole thing, and we just threw ourselves back into it because it was just such an incredible night, And as the night starts to wind down, you know how it goes with concerts. You never want them to end, right? Because it's just filling you up. This music you listen to thousands of times over and over and over, and then you get that one night, those 2 hours where you're there hearing it all live and getting it. I never want it to end, but it's going to. And it hit that point in the show when John had played pretty much every song he had to, except for one. And then it happened. Wow. Like, I can't sing, but it was Pink Houses. And they start playing it. And Russ and I were high-fiving and we're hugging and we're, oh man, Pink Houses. We're like, there's a black man with a black cat, and we're going on. And then, and it was amazing, right? Because in the second verse, there's this line, there's like a young man in a t-shirt, and we're like going like that, and John looked at us, we're like, it's the best, And it's just going on, and then they go into this really long break, I don't know what you would call the big long musical break, an extra long bridge, and they throw the house lights up and there's 20,000 people at the sports arena and it's packed and the place is just cheering and screaming and John is just walking across the stage and he's at the far side and he's pointing at the cheap seats and he's high-fiving people and it's like this entire arena full of melon heads are just screaming and loving and laughing and everybody's going nuts, right? And you can see the whole crowd behind you and it is just pure magic. And then John starts to walk across the stage. He's just walking and pointing and fiving and just, it's pure love. And then he stops. And he turns. And he points. At me. And he goes, get up here. And I grab, my God, it's happening. And it's pink houses. Like, we're like, it's pink houses. It's so much better. Like, we were like, and I grab Russ and I go, let's go. And John goes, no, just you. No, John, both of us. No, just 20,000 people are screaming and cheering. The arena's just rocking, and I'm arguing with John Mellencamp at his show. And it was like, and it was just like, I'm not coming up there without Russ, like we were doing. And then finally, I was like, that's it. It's over. It's over. And I turned to Russ, and I go, it's not happening, man. And Russ goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, we swore. And he goes, go. And he shoves me towards the stage. Guitar tech throws me up on there. John grabs me around the shoulder with his arm, starts walking me across stage, and he's going, man, you're a crazy motherfucker, aren't you? And he leads me, and I'm looking, and it's like, when you get up on stage, oh my God, it is just this hot white curtain of light, man. You can't see a thing. It is so much bright. It's like life in high def. It's amazing. And he walks me up to the microphone, and he goes, that's your mic. Sing into it loud, sing it proud. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I've been spending years preparing for this moment, right? And then John goes, all right, kick it off. And I'm like, I have no musical talent. Like, I can barely play the radio. I don't know how to start a song. And I'm in front of 20,000 people. John Mellencamp, the whole thing. And it's like, you would have thought that maybe at some point during all these obsessive years, I would have thought about this moment. But no, I'm like, how do you start a song? Like, and I'm just frozen for a second. And I look at John, and he's like, 1, 2, and I'm like, oh, right. 3, 4, ain't that America for you and me? And we start kicking it in and screaming, and I'm going, and I'm looking back, and the band is really into it, and I'm just like jamming along with John, and John looks at me, he's like, yeah, all right, man, this is pretty fucking cool. It is insane. I am just living out the greatest rock star fantasy camp that has ever existed. And we're singing, and we're going off, and I'm pointing, and I'm looking at Russ, and I'm pointing at Russ. It was insane and incredible. And then it was over. And I was like, let's do another one. Let's play Rudy Toot Toot. And John's like, no, I think we're going to go now. And he got me, and he had a good grip, and he led me over, and I took this flying leap right off the stage. And it was amazing. And Russ and I, we were hugging and laughing, and people were cheering us. And we got to go backstage after the show. We hung out with the band. Kenny came up to us. He's like, oh my God, you guys were, no one ever cheers me. You guys made me play harder. And we're like, we inspired Kenny Aronoff. And now, a couple years ago, he followed both of us on Twitter. We had a moment. That was incredible. I mean, it was, and John couldn't have been better. He signed everything we had for, we didn't have him sign our chests, but like we weren't, but we had, like he signed everything. And it was just one of those like truly magical nights. It was too magical. Our teens were ending, this period of our life was coming to an end, and it actually happened. And everybody always tells you, whatever you do, never meet your idols. Never, ever meet your idols. And what I tell them, absolutely meet your idols. As long as they're as cool as John freaking Mellencamp. Thank you.